Morning. I'd like to call the Executive Committee meeting for Tuesday, August 28th to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Tripp? Present. Mr. Washington? Mr. Legess? Mr. Vickery? Mr. Olthoff? Mr. Hess? Mr. McConnell? Mr. Snipes? Mr. Byrne? Mr. Seroy? Ms. Weber? Mr. Zenz? Mr. Lear? Mr. Wheeler?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I have nothing under public comment today. Presentations. I need approval of the minutes from July 24th, 2018. A motion to approve. Mr. Olthoff, Mr. Byrne. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Nothing under appointments at this time. I asked Kevin Duval. Do you have anything for us today? Well, he got up, so he must.
I'll keep it brief here. In your packet, you should have a list of computer surplus equipment. It's basically just moving some more out of our facility. The departments are moving forward with some of their updates. I got to have the room for the new computers that are coming in. All of these, to be honest, they're gone already, but they were all broke. Pieces aren't on them, so we just had to move them out. So this was to make room for the new ones that are coming in for the various departments. So.
Mr. Seroy.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to declare these items listed as surplus.
Do I have a second to that? Mr. Washington? This requires voice vote. Yes, voice vote. I'm declaring surplus as voice vote. We're not spending money, correct? Yeah. Okay, any questions? Mr. Olthoff.
Where are they going?
The city of Kankakee has a facility by their maintenance department that if you live in Kankakee, that you can take your electronic ones, and it's behind a fence on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. You can take it to there and they'll get rid of it for you. There's no cost to you.
Just for the city?
As I know of, I mean, we've been using it for a decade probably, but I don't think it goes for Bradley Bourbonnais. I think it's for people.
Bradley has their own, right? Yeah. They used to, yeah. Okay. Yep. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask for Bo, but if you had anything else.
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
And one last thing, with the new board member, Mr. Zen, we became aware of something that it doesn't apply to most of you, that this chairman implemented a shared calendar for all of you. And we've implemented it on a lot of people with their phones. If you have an Android phone, we found out that because of how it works, that it's not syncing with that anymore. If you have an iPhone, you got an iPad, that still works. What I plan on doing after I talk to the chairman, make sure this is okay, is we'll just maintain not only the one that we have, I'll create a Gmail one. Mm-hmm. Since all Androids are meant to work in the Gmail infrastructure, we'll just create one. My department will do it, and then whenever Diane has a change, we'll just pop one in there. So that will automatically sync with them unless you have another. I've had enough board members that asked it, maybe 4 or 5, that I was like, maybe we should just look to maintain 2. But I wanted to talk to you first to see if that was worth it for you.
Well, if that's what's necessary. You know, the reason is if a committee gets canceled or moved or whatever happens, there's information for that meeting itself, then it updates everybody's calendar all at once, so we don't have to make 20 different phone calls besides alerting the public to that change.
And there are other ones that we've worked out that work, but this would be you would have to do less for it. So thank you we found out that I don't know how long that existed, but it's been that way. So that's the last thing.
All right, any questions? Thanks, Kevin. Moving on, Health Department, John Beavis.
Good morning.
I didn't have an official report this morning in regards to anything else that was going on, but I did want to just make a couple, a few comments in regards to an item that's later on the agenda in regards to the Home Kitchen Act, an ordinance that is being proposed for the county, otherwise known as the Cupcake Law. Basically, the state of Illinois has passed this legislation that allows counties or municipalities, in some cases, to pass an ordinance that would allow the creation of a limited home kitchen business. It's not, there is a misconception out there that it's just for cupcakes. It's not. It's basically allowing somebody to have a small version of a bakery within their home, and they would be exempt from any kind of a health department inspection or regulation. It doesn't require any kind of food service training that the other restaurants and facilities must undergo. They can't sell over $1,000 a month in sales of the food items that they are allowed to make, and it can only be pickup, so the individual has to come to the home, pick it up, and it can't be delivered. Otherwise you start falling out of this and you're basically a business operating without having to do anything else that everyone else has to do to operate a bakery in the county or anywhere else. And it would only apply to non-potentially hazardous foods. So that would basically mean like no meat, no fish, no poultry. So it's going to be your baked goods, your cookies, your pies, your cakes. So far, since that law was created, there's only eight counties that I'm aware of in the state that have passed it. In all the meetings that I've attended over the years since it's happened, I've not met any environmental health directors when I was an environmental health director, and now as the administrator, and I talked to our administrators groups that support this, mainly because there's no protection from the public health side, from the health department that can go out there and regulate and inspect as we do every day for the 650 licensed facilities we have in the county currently. And no mechanism for providing that education or training, short of the fact that there is another exception that allows then us to investigate only in the case of a complaint or an outbreak. Then we get asked to come in and do some sort of an inspection. And I would contend at that point it's too late, if that's the case. So why am I recommending no ordinance for Kankakee County? The three main reasons. First is the food safety training is not required. It is for all restaurants, as I described. There's a cottage food law that's similar to this that already exists, is on the books, and allows the same types of foods to be made in a home kitchen, but only sold at a farmer's market. And that's occurring right now in our county and many counties throughout the state. But it requires a registration with the health department, and it requires the food safety training, the education aspect. We weren't necessarily in agreement with that, but at least the registration process was there and the education is there for the people so that they at least have to go. It's kind of like driver's license. They don't just say, here, go drive a car now. You have to, take the student driver training and pass the test. Second is the disease communicability part. 3,000 to 5,000 people die every year from a foodborne outbreak. It can be foodborne, it can be waterborne. There's a lot of foodborne outbreaks and recalls that are going on right now. One of the bigger ones that you might, remember seeing in the news recently is the McDonald's salads and a lot of the salads that you buy in the grocery stores. And so those are foods that are inspected and are regulated by the health authority. And you might say, well, if it's happening there, then the home might be safer. Well, that's not the case. If it's happening in a licensed facility, how much more could it go on, when it's not being regulated or watched or monitored, how much more potentially could happen? Sorry. There it is. Third, then the no registration process. So there's no way to know who's doing what. Do we have one person in the county that's doing it? Could there be 100 people doing it? If we're not aware of it until there's a complaint or an outbreak, as I said, in many cases, that's too late. The food training and the education is very important because it teaches those safe food handling practices to the individuals. Currently, today, the way things are set up on weekends, Mr. Washington and then there were Mr. Snipes, I believe, last month, brought up the question about the churches and the things like that. So there's already a mechanism in place for temporary food events and nonprofit organizations that do those types of things. And we may not charge them for a license, but they're still required to have one. And it provides an opportunity for them to reach out to us and get that education so that we can help explain things to them as they have their event, which might be one time a year or twice a year or a once a month pancake breakfast, for example. And it just helps them to educate the staff, the people that are involved in those events. Mr. Washington gave the example of, when he got married and hired, somebody made a cake for them. Well, the health department doesn't get involved or license events that are considered private functions, and a wedding would be considered a private function unless through the course of that wedding you hired a business to cater your food to you, in which case then the people that are catering the food would be required to have a license. So it's a different situation, those types of examples that you give, but mechanisms are in place to allow for the education and training for the food safety in that part. The 650 establishments that we license and inspect 3 times twice a year here in Kankakee County range from your full-blown restaurants to your hospital cafeterias, to your schools, to your grocery stores, to your 7-Elevens, to the liquor stores that sell milk. All those facilities are required to get a license and provide food training and education to the staff for what they're doing. And passing this ordinance does not give us that ability at the health department to protect the public's health for some of the situations that could occur. And again, then I'm kind of looking for the worst to happen, but it happens every day. We're seeing it now in places that are even regulated. So with that would be the reasons why I would, if I were voting, I would not vote to support this and can't support this. Ultimately, if it does, then it does allow them to be doing these things if they follow the exceptions, but there's no way for us to regulate that or follow up with that, and some of it isn't even within our jurisdiction. For example, if they're operating a business, then within this city or town in which they're operating in, the taxes and things like that doesn't apply to me, and or zoning issues, and then I will say then we did meet with planning and zoning, the state's attorney, with the business that's bringing this forward, and we did want to cooperate in regards to the wording for the ordinance that is being presented today. With that, I'll entertain any questions.
Mr. Byrne?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple questions on a point. How many outbreaks have we had from a home-baked business here in Kankakee County?
I can't think of any.
Okay. In the state of Illinois, it is currently legal. This law enables a person to conduct a home-baked business in
Correct.
Illinois. It is correct. It is illegal. Also, personally, I think is it government's role to tell a private citizen who and what they can purchase from? I mean, that's just my way of looking at it. You have even if this doesn't pass, what's stopping people from doing it now? There are probably numerous people conducting business this way. What's stopping them, whether we pass this or not?
Well, currently, right now, the law does not exist. I mean, the opportunity exists that Illinois passed the rule that the county of Kankakee could pass this ordinance. So as of today, right now, it does not exist. So anyone in this room who potentially is baking foods or making foods and selling it out their door without having gone through the proper mechanisms that are in place for the rules that I enforce at the health department or the environmental health staff and support at the health department, they're operating illegally.
But
when we find those individuals, we approach them and we work with them. There are a number of opportunities which you either stop and open up a restaurant, or you stop, and there are cheaper mechanisms to take to potentially do this. You could find somebody that that owns a restaurant that allows you to lease some space, and then you could try the opportunity that way. And then the food is being prepared in a controlled setting. If it's just being made at home, you know, then I have to trust, we all have to trust, you would have to trust as a consumer that that person's practicing proper hygienic practices.
But that's
for
a consumer's choice. That's a private citizen's choice on who they want to purchase an item from. And that's,
you're absolutely right.
is
It
that
truly
government's job
becomes
to
a
tell them who
buyer
they can and
beware. That's a
cannot.
very big buyer beware.
I mean, it's no different than if somebody's conducting business from home where you have a mechanic. He works mechanic during the day, does side work. Who's regulating that? That's unregulated. I mean, comes down to choice of a person, a private citizen's right to purchase from whomever they decide, and buyer beware. And I know that in the law they have to have it labeled home baked, so there's no preconceived. This is being made in a commercial kitchen. You know what you're buying.
Any other questions, Mr. Tripp?
Well, John, everything that you said, I don't think I can support this. I mean, I don't want to stick my neck out there and be responsible for something that you cautioned us on.
Mr. Washington first.
Is there no way that the shortcomings that you mentioned can't be incorporated into this law?
We researched that, Graham researched that. Those were some of the questions that I would have been more comfortable if we could have. But it was felt that based upon the way that the law has been created to, if the ordinance is passed, the language is very small. It basically just says you can operate this as long as you don't sell over $1,000. You can't be regulated by the health department or inspected. And so adding things into that would have, in essence, violated that, because it would have been requiring, regulation of some sort from the health department, which we're not allowed to do.
It appears to me that the way this is going, it's not really giving the person or the people that want to have an operation out of their home and want it to be legal, it's not giving them an opportunity to do so.
First time, Mr. Snipes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kind of weighing both sides of the issue. I'm thinking a home bake operation, mom, dad, whoever it is doing baked goods in a limited fashion. If I was to look at the policing of that small operation, then I can probably get technical and say that we need to have the health department investigate when they're cooking meals for their children or their husband or family members, because technically they have the ability to have some type of foodborne some type of foodborne outbreak as far as that's concerned. But I do know that's limited. Also know the state of Illinois basically must examine this and put something out there. Why I do think that because it's more than my friends and my family, but the potential for anyone that hears my business to come in. I'm wondering if there's a way that you can, because it says follow all applicable state and local laws and regulations, what would prohibit us from putting in, by the requirements of the Kankakee County Code, zoning ordinance, including section blah, 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 and the health department regulations as far as licensing certificate and modified training, which would be minimal. I think that would be able to protect both sides of the equation. Is there anything that stops us from doing that?
I believe that's what was just asked by Mr. Washington, and the state's attorney's office said, no, we can't, because the state law specifically says that they're exempt from those. The state law specifically says that they're exempt from that application. Am I incorrect, Mr. Quinn, on that assessment, so we can put
The
that part to?
application or the?
I think,
Yeah, right.
I think you've got a good handle on what the law is saying. State and local and the ordinances proposed was referencing things like the IRS codes, the state taxation codes, zoning, like Delbert, has to be involved in certain aspects of creating a business and making sure that's appropriately zoned. The state law as it applies to the cupcake ordinance is very restrictive, and I explored some of Mr. Beavis's concerns about, can we have them provide the label that they're going to use? Can we make them register with the health department just so he's aware of their existence? I can't square that circle peg. So my recommendation, it's very limiting. So if the state law didn't have the phrase, and I'm not quoting this, but it's the health department can investigate upon a complaint or an outbreak. If it didn't have that line, I would feel more comfortable recommending some additional, hoops to jump through, for lack of a better way of phrasing it. But because it outlines that, it's pretty much tied the hands of what this county can do in terms of how to react to a situation. Right. So if a complaint happens for somebody, having, some sort of a food-related illness or something like that, and goes to the health department, absolutely, Mr. Beavis and his team can get involved. Should this pass? Absolutely. The problem I think Mr. Beavis is outlining is, at that point, from his perspective, it's too late. The disease or the outbreak has already occurred. At that point, we're just limiting the spread.
So that could be with any business, McDonald's devices, and you got a fountain coming out of that, so maybe that's chances.
I don't mean to push back, but McDonald's would have to have a food license.
Yeah, I mean,
So they would have already had Mr. Beavis in there to inspect it, or his team, of course.
Mr.
to
Wojcik,
inspect
did you have a question?
Preparation of the food and all that, right? So he would have had a bit more control at the upfront section of that regulated process, right? More so than a home bakery would have in this context.
Mr. Wojcik?
Is there any way to monitor the $1,000 threshold? I mean, they can.
Not from the health department standpoint.
So
That's
they
not
could
our authority
actually-
or jurisdiction. That would be within the municipality or say the county.
I mean, that's gonna be pretty hard to do because you can't go in and inspect them or look at their books or.
Another first time? Mr.
I had
Olcott?
another question.
Oh, you had a question. Sorry, didn't cut you off.
What on these at Christmas time? You see these cookie walks where everybody brings in cookies and they sell them. How do we do anything with that now?
Again, if it's related to a temporary food event, a church function or something like that, then the requirement's in place, and we have a pretty good relationship after 31 years that there are some that slip through the cracks or they're not aware of the rule or they just don't call the health department. But in those circumstances, they contact us up to let us know we're having this function, here's what we're doing. We have them submit paperwork, we research what it is that they're making, how they're making it, and then if we have any questions or concerns, we work that out and or are able to at least provide the education, and then they can get that information out to, if it was us, for example, and each one of us has agreed to make a dozen cookies, that here's the information you need. Make sure you're washing your hands, keep your pets off the table, don't change your little baby's diaper right here, make sure you wash your hands properly. Those are all things that we are looking for when we're inspecting the restaurants, but we would not have any control over in a situation like this. And then just like I said, not knowing whether right now we have the one individual, that's bringing this forward, and if it passes, then next year there's 100. I don't know who those 100 are. You don't know who those 100 are. I don't know if they've approached their villages or not. At that point, I guess I would have to say it's out of my hands. I'm busy doing what I'm supposed to be doing, short of getting a complaint. And we would be investigating any outbreak, whether it's a private function or not, because that's a requirement we're supposed to do. So eventually, if you made bad milk for your family members through that example, and caused a bunch to become sick, through the investigation, it would be determined that, well, that was your bad, not necessarily that everyone's blaming the restaurant that they ate at earlier, because then they didn't even serve or make that food, if that's how the investigation went.
Just a comment. George, you might remember this, and my memory might not be that great, but when the health department came into existence, I remember there was a big uproar because it killed all ice cream socials. Because no one was allowed to bring pies and cakes to an ice cream social. Wasn't it?
That's
See, and I thought
that's
that
a health department urban myth.
But it's kind of the same thing now. I just think it's an overreach. I've never gotten sick on any of my mom's cookies or cakes. I don't think there's anything in there to be had. It says non-hazardous in the ordinance.
at that time, my son was attending McNamara High School, and there was an attempt to prevent the selling of candies and the selling of pizza and all of those things that went to fundraising for the school.
Okay. First time, before I go back to Mr. Byrne. Mr. Olthoff, did you have something? All right. That's where it is.
He's selling candy corn on his
We have one more for the first time, Mr. Vickery.
I was
Please.
concerned about the labeling. I mean, you have to know whether there's peanuts in it, and you have to know what certain things are in your product, and so there's no control on labeling. And
Not
so
from
when
our
we-
being able to observe that. That is
Right.
correct. So with the cottage rule, for example, at the farmers markets, there's specific labeling requirements, and in this particular business, they might follow those labeling requirements. But as a consumer and the buyer beware, today I'm just amazed at how much more I'm seeing people who are allergic to not only peanuts but all kinds of stuff. And viruses can be passed. That's one of the most common ways to pass illnesses, and anything can carry a virus. So if
I do need to clarify here, because we're getting into viruses that
okay.
The Food Safety Modernization Act, something I'm very familiar with, requires 5-log reduction, which is a kill step basically on micro reduction. Baking is considered a kill step. So you're killing any micro. Are you saying that you'd be concerned that people would introduce micro after baking into their finished product? I'm trying to draw the line here, because inherently I don't know of any baked goods that have ever been subject to getting people sick, like with listeria and anything else, and unless it was introduced after the product was baked and packaged and all of that kind of stuff. So while I do get your point, I'm just trying to, it seems like we're going a little overboard on our concerns here for such a small market, and I understand that, but are you able to speak to kill step, or to like killing micro and baked goods and recalls on baked goods?
No, I can't to that. Obviously, after the process and through the restaurants when they're cooking and preparing food and the serving of the food. So once the food has been made, if this was killed, if the individual has a virus or is contaminated or is a carrier of something, potentially then the container that they're wrapping or touching of the cookie or the cake or the pie or whatever can cause that. It has happened. In relation to the question, over the years at the health department, most of the outbreaks I'm familiar with have been with large scale restaurants. I get that, I understand that, but the possibility is there that, you've got a bakery down the street here in this town that's complying with all the rules and regulations that it's supposed to do, and you have a Cliff Notes version of a bakery down here in this neighborhood that might not be doing anything near that. And we aren't able to regulate that or protect the public's health until after a complaint is made. Those are my concerns.
Mr. Byrne, last time, please, before the question's called.
Again, to reiterate, just to repeat myself, you have no recollection of any outbreak with a home baked business?
No.
Okay. Second of all, a lot of these businesses that we're talking about eventually become businesses. The message we're sending to somebody who may have a desire to at one point have a brick and mortar business, we don't want you doing that. We don't want you possibly be a future business that could be an employer. That's my only statement. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Vickery, sorry.
I watched my wife bake a cake the other day, and you don't bake the frosting. So she had to mix up a whole bunch of frosting and put on that cake after it was baked. So the situation where baking kills all virus or whatever doesn't apply to the frosting. So, well, I ate the cake. I'm fine, but I'm not going to buy it from somebody that I don't know. So.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a motion to? I'm sorry.
Mr. Vickery asked about the labeling requirements as to allergies and such like that. The state law does require that, does it not in a baked good or for whatever, gluten-free would be a part of the labeling requirement. That would
In
be
the
on
microphone, gentlemen, please. I'm sorry.
That would be the state. So the enforcement would be not at Mr. Beavis's level, because at that point he would not be aware of their existence. But the requirement to outline that there is some sort of an allergic risk to the consumer is part of the state law.
There's no vote until later.
Oh, yeah, correct. There's a votes coming later. That's later on in the agenda. All right. Is there any other questions about this? We can't call the question because the question's later. So you can call it immediately when we get to that part of the part of the meeting. So, all right, thanks. Thanks for the robust conversation. Schools, Dr. Murphy, nothing not here today. VAC, Derek Torres. You have anything for us? Got his monthly report in the file. Is there a motion to approve the monthly? Motion to approve the VAC monthly report. Mr. Zen, second. Mr. Seroy. All those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the short version is we've been very involved in outreach. One of our big wins is we were able to get a veteran who got out in the early 80s approved for VA healthcare after he had been denied several times, which is allowing him to receive treatment that he desperately required. Other than that, things are going well with the VAC.
Any questions?
It was down a little bit in June, but it was up for July. So we had 36 riders with 40 appointments. In July, it was 49 riders with 60 appointments. So we are definitely providing a needed service. And we also found out that the VA is going to start a shuttle between the Kankakee VA clinic and the Joliet clinic soon. So that'll help veterans get to appointments a lot closer than having to go to Hines.
Mr. Washington.
You've eliminated the problem of people getting left behind at the VA when they go and they have to stay later than the appointed time?
Our bus will not leave anyone behind. The VA shuttle has occasionally, and usually those people end up coming home with us.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to County Administrator's Report.
Good morning. First, the easy one, I think, is the staffing report is in front of you. I did get a call from the Sheriff's Department this morning. There's one error under corrections officers. The total number is correct. The number of part-time now is 8 and not 7, as reflected in the report. So there, if you look at the prior month section, which is kind of the middle part, it says 10 part-time and 127 full-time. That should say 11 and 126. And then in the current month activity, where 3 part-time corrections officers go to full-time, so what would end up happening is with that wash, it doesn't change the head count, but there are 8 part-time, not 7.
Any questions on that part of things? Okay.
Okay. The second thing is you all received a week ago the revised policy manual. Is, as a reminder, this went first to our liability carrier and their legal counsel, which gave us, I would say, the lion's share of the changes, which are all marked in red. That came back, and once those were incorporated, we did send it to our state's attorney's office. It was reviewed by 2 separate attorneys within the state's attorney's office who reviewed it. Their feedback is incorporated. There are some pending, 3 or 4 pending policies yet to be revised. They're currently still under review by the state's attorney's office, so we'll bring those back around separately. The big issue for us now is to make sure that we're incorporating a lot of changes in laws that have occurred over the last, in some cases, 20 years that weren't reflected in our policies. So we want to make sure that we get those implemented as soon as possible. That is the biggest bulk. The one thing that the chairman did ask me to do is to look at the travel policy and look at our wording in the travel policy to make sure that it's clear to our employees before they go on some county-related travel what their reimbursement will be. There has been some confusion. So the changes that we made to the expense reimbursement policy was really intended to clarify those types of things. And really it revolved around 3 different pieces, all on the front page, really, the first page. One, that the department head really approves those travel reimbursements. There was some ambiguous language, and in practice there was some confusion where a department head would approve an expense and it would be rejected later on, and we kind of tried to take that out and tried to put the onus on the department head to manage that. The mileage section, you can see there were 3 different regulations that were listed as guidance for mileage at a federal and a state level, and it was actually confusing, though they weren't necessarily in agreement. And I'm going to tell you an example. An example that I talked to one of our department heads about had to do with one of the state ordinances or laws that was listed had a section that said that the mileage was reimbursed from your place of business, and that's been used, which works some of the time. But for me, who lives south of here, if I'm going to training in Champaign, does it make sense that we follow a regulation that reimburses me from Kankakee? That doesn't make sense. So in my conversation with our department head manager, who questioned me on it, well, we don't say that, Anita. What if somebody lives in Tinley and they're going to Chicago? I said, I expect you as the manager to understand that, and if they turn in mileage from Kankakee, to talk to them about that. The manager is at the closest level to that employee, and being able to coach and counsel your employees is a management responsibility. If a manager is looking to me or you to manage their department, that's an issue with a manager. That's my opinion. That's why I recommend the change. We follow the IRS rules. We expect our leaders to lead our teams. So, my opinion. The other thing was the per diem. I spent a lot of time on the wording for per diem, and we used the word per diem a lot. And I will say, as it was used here at the county, it's not a per diem. A per diem is you're going to get $51 every day. In many cases, in companies where I worked, if it was a per diem, I got a check before I left. Here you go. Here's your money. Spend it as you will. We seem to use it in different ways. Number one, we would use it, but we expect receipts. That's okay. But then what we're doing is reimbursing actual expenses. So that's the bit where I say they're only used to determine the full rate that an employee may seek reimbursement for actual expenses. I wanted to make that clear so that our employees aren't thinking, oh, I got $51 a day. It doesn't matter what my receipts say. I'm going to get $51. No, you're going to get reimbursed your actual expenses, but the maximum amount that's going to be reimbursed is the $51 a day or whatever the amount is. I'll tell you one other thing that I did say I did recommend changing is that we reimburse our employees on the destination venue. I have never seen wording where you would reimburse employees where they work rather than where they're going. it's confusing to me. And in fact, there's been some discussion about the GSA, and we use the GSA for reimbursement or for the per diem amounts. The GSA specifically says that for government employees, the GSA rates are used on the destination venues to be fair to our federal employees. So we picked and choose part of the GSA. We ignored other parts. It just didn't, it seemed confusing and not right. And we had employees not being reimbursed what the GSA amounts were for, and what it costs for them to eat at a destination. So that I recommend changing to just using wherever it is, the destination venue where they are. Those are really the two big changes to those. If anyone has questions or comments or concerns, feel free.
And if I could, just for some background, yeah, can we get a motion first? Yeah. Motion to approve, Mr. Hess. Mr. Olthoff with a second. Just for some background, we talked about this in the past, and we knew this started well over a year ago, knowing we had problems with the policy and procedure manual. And it finally, when Anita came on board, we had a whirlwind of things going on, but this was part of what we had to get fixed right away, because there was a lot of laws that had changed, as she mentioned, that weren't even included in this. So we're finally to the point of, you know, recommending that we approve this manual with these changes, and then we could work through, and if we think some policies need to be tweaked or amended or things like that down the road, that's what this committee is for. But this is the culmination of not just 2 weeks or a couple of lawyer conversations. There's been many legal opinions that have vetted through this and sifted through this, and both on our liability carrier side and here at the county. So I just want to give you some background on, you know, this is about 8-9 months worth of work that has gone into this. So, and at least, right?
All in 4 months.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, so it started before. The liability people had it, and Graham was working on this, yeah, about 8-9 months ago. He started on it. So, so I guess go with questions there for Anita, please, from this point. Ms. Weber.
I love handbooks. I like rules. I like people to follow them. I'm really proud of you for this and all people that worked on it. My questions are, one place it's called probationary employee, and later it called introductory. Which way you want?
Introductory.
Introductory instead of probation.
Right. And that is more of a movement in HR. You know, there was a tendency to call things probationary. The intent, or what happened legally, is over time then people would say, or an employee who may be terminated later on said, well, I passed probation, so now I'm guaranteed a job. So there is a movement within the HR to do away with probationary, the term, and just call it introductory. It's really your training period.
It's semantics too, a little bit. The other, just nothing you've changed, but one place on 81, it says, after 4 years, all disciplinary records will be deleted from the record prior to release. Surely not.
Which policy is
81, it's inspection of personnel records.
Okay.
And it isn't in red, it's already there, so it isn't.
It's always been there.
Yes.
Right, no change.
Wow. I mean.
But again, that's one of those things that we should bring back to executive. If you so maybe put that under a new business, send me an email if you want to revise that.
Well,
please do.
I think it's dangerous. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's one thing, and the other is it after 35 hours an employee starts earning compensatory time?
Yes.
Not 40 hours a week, but after 35 hours an employee begins to earn compensatory time, which that employee can take off the next week if approved.
Right. Right. If they're scheduled for a 35-hour work week. So think about this, you know, compensatory time allowed for government employees, not allowed for any private industry, right? In private industry, everything over 40 hours, any overtime is time and a half.
Yeah.
Government allows for compensatory time over your scheduled work week,
Day,
over
okay.
40 hours, or over your scheduled work week. So if we have a department, someone's scheduled for 35 hours, rather than, let's say there's budgetary constraints on their payroll, where they don't have additional funds to pay an extra hour, 2 hours a week extra wages. You have to pay that person for the time worked, right? So it just means that, say on Tuesday night, an employee has some reporting to do to the state of Illinois, which has to occur after hours. So every Tuesday night, they stay an hour later. Then you let them leave an hour early the next day, instead of paying them an extra hour and having an extra dollars in your payroll. If they're okay with leaving at 3:30 the next night, that's what they do.
So are the 5 hours between 35 and 40 at straight time?
Well, it depends on, we have a lot of different work schedules here and a lot of different union contracts.
Yes.
We have employees at 35, at 37 and a half, some get overtime at 37 and a half, some at 40. I mean, 40 is legal,
Yes.
but depending on the department, we have many different schedules, so.
Then there's a form, that reimbursement form, you were talking about the reimbursement form that does say the half day and the, let's see if I can find it. On like 89, it says per diem up to $25.50 per half day and $51 for full day. Is that what you want on that form, or is it at destination?
Well, the 25.50 and the 51 doesn't have anything to do with the destination area. Well, it could if it's higher.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could change that. We could circle back and change it, but
if because I was hurrahing your destination, and then if I were to fill out this form, oh no, I only get $25.50.
I'll put that on my list of things to circle back and look at.
It could go back to department chairperson again, it goes back to deciding, but here's that form again with money on it, and there's $38.88 for breakfast or something. The other is, Juanita and I have already talked about a template for a position description. Every person should have a position description as a template, and the advertising should list what the requirements are. She and I were looking this morning, a page that says, and posting whatever is known about the job. I think you post exactly what's required of the job, not just anything you know about it. So, I love personnel handbooks.
HR professional. So yes, again, we'll make note of these that you've caught, and we'll come back, and please continue in the manual if you see things you have questions about, want to bring back. That's why we sent it out a week ago for people like yourself who'll go through it. And some of the intent is in the policy, we'll fix the actual form, like you said, on the back end to bring that back. And I don't think we ever approved the form. It was just in there, so we can change the form to match it. So, you did. You mentioned the collective bargain agreements. Obviously, those take precedence over the policy and procedure manual. That was one of the things I wanted to mention. That's obvious, but I want to at least mention it to the group. Mr. Snipes?
Thank you, sir. Just not to belabor, kind of like Carol Weber, I kind of looked at some things, and perhaps you all have your reason behind it, or if not, we can correct it. If we go to the 1, 2, 3, the fourth paragraph, it reads as this.
In which policy?
Under your welcome policy and procedure handbook, the first page say welcome. Go down to the fourth paragraph. Okay, it says it is the policy to treat employees and applicants fairly. And I'm trying to say, is it the intent of the policy? Or, because it just says it is the policy to treat employees and applicants fairly.
Yes.
It is the policy.
Well, I hope we are. Yes.
Okay, I want to say if it's the intent, because policy doesn't treat, but is it the county policy? Is just the intent of the county policy to treat, but it doesn't have anything in it. It just says it's the policy to treat. So you might have that. It just kind of came up to me as something not clear. And then when we go down to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, paragraph, it does say unless your employment is governed by collective bargaining agreements or by a governed by a collective bargain agreement, one of the two.
Okay.
Okay, because I didn't see it up in there. I'm assuming that because this language has not been changed, it says shall constitute employment contract unless it reduced to writing and signed by the county board chair person. I kind of like to say with the consent of the county board, but it does say county board chairperson. So I'm sure he's probably going to bring it back to us. And if we go all the way to page, it says 1 of page 2, the sick time and extended illness.
Yes.
Okay. Under procedures, it says employees who have a 1, 2, or 3. Can we just say employees who have 1, 2, or 5 anniversaries during any given year? It just says a 1, 2. So I don't know if that A needs to be in there. But in addition to that, something kind of sounds a little bit ambiguous here.
What part of the sick time?
If you go to sick time and extended illness bank under procedure.
Yes.
Okay, you go to that 1, 2, 3, the third line, and where it starts with employee. Employees who have a 1, 2, or 5 year anniversary during any given. Employees who have 1, 2, or 5 year anniversary during any given. You got a 1. I don't know if the 1 has to be.
Right.
A
If
1.
you have a 1 year, if you have a 2 year, or if you have a 5 year anniversary.
Right. Then I was looking for a to go with that, but it wasn't.
Oh.
It's just 1.
Okay.
Okay, but anyway, right here, something's kind of ambiguous to me because it's saying, if I read it right, employees who have a 1, 2, or 5 year anniversary during any given year will be eligible for 5 days of additional time on their anniversary date. However, after 6 months of continuous service, they get 5 days. So I'm assuming that they're going to get another 5 days on the 1 year as well.
Correct.
So that'd be 10 days.
So that's your 10 days. So your first year, you start with 0 sick days, right?
Okay.
As a general rule, our employees get 10 days a year. You can see
Okay.
how it's broken up between sick and extended sick as they move on. But so that somebody doesn't have to go a whole year before they have a sick day and come to work sick because they don't have any paid time off, I think that's the intent. Typically, it's the intent of a policy like this, what I've seen in my history. After 6 years, or 6 months, you're going to get the first 5 days to help make it to
Okay.
that first year. And then so when you get to your first year anniversary, you're going to get your other 5 days.
Okay. and
So
then-
it's just a timing thing.
So it's kind of someone kind of making it
Right. Right.
plain here.
Mhm.
Okay, and not, but at the same time, it's adding on to it. It looks like
Right.
as a. Okay, that was it. Other than the sick time policy that's on the next page, I just had concern with the word sufficiently ill. Your sick time may, and number 3, sick time may be utilized by employees when they are sufficiently ill so that good judgment will be determined. Sufficiently ill so that good
judgment. Good judgment.
Can it just, if they're ill or doctor for me, I mean, what is sufficiently, who judges that? It's almost like it opens up the
The
judgment.
employee and the people who have to work next to you. Sometimes the employee doesn't realize they're sufficiently ill to go home, and the people sitting next to them have to tell them, please go home.
You're contaminating us.
If you got a cold and the doctor's at the cover.
Okay, that's
Anything
fine.
else? Mr. Zenz, hold on just a moment, please. Go ahead.
Good. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just real quick clarifying question with regards to the mileage piece. Were we not in compliance with a law that had been put into place or something along those lines as it related to starting, that mileage from home versus starting from work? Or how did that come to fruition that you were talking about?
I think there were times that reimbursements for employees different. That rule was brought into place, not by using the what do I want to say? The state statute. There is a part of the state travel policy that says lowest miles driven or most direct route, and I think at times that was used to lower expense reimbursements. Sometimes the most direct route might be through a city street rather than on a freeway. And so I know in one case, I had an employee tell me that they took a 2-lane highway all the way to Champaign because they were afraid they wouldn't get reimbursed by driving on 57.
Okay.
If I could clarify, state statute means for state employees.
Right.
Right.
That's not governing what we do here, but that was being applied to
The
what
state,
we do here.
It was the state travel policy. So it listed for state employees, you know, that verbiage is in their travel policy. So we listed multiple policies across varying governmental entities, and then it just was terribly confusing.
I was just trying to determine to see whether we would have any impacts for back pay and reimbursements or something along those lines.
Pull pin on the hand grenade.
Yeah, thank you.
I call it as I see it.
No, hey, no, that's you're absolutely right. I think at times the way that it was being interpreted and documents were being changed in the auditing process that our employees could have a legitimate gripe if they were withheld money. Now, as far as the destination payments and the way that things were divided up, as far as, you know, certain amount for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that is also in question. But the destination was listed as Kankakee County to start with. So a burger here is not, to Anita's point, a burger here is not a burger cost in Vegas or in Los Angeles or wherever else around the country. It's exponential. So we were only reimbursing at that rate, and our employees were the ones suffering for it. So I wouldn't be surprised if people ask for some money back, to be honest.
Okay. Just want to make sure that we were prepared for that.
Yeah.
Well, it was, I would say this, it was our policy at the time. So that would be my position.
Okay,
We were
thank you.
following our policy at the
This will
time.
be effective when it's approved.
When it's approved
Yes.
at the full board, exactly.
Yes.
Some of this is clarification, I will say, that the policy's intent and the reasonable interpretation of the policy is what we're talking about now. We just tried to leave no room for interpretation of anything else. And also to let the board know, and this is an important part of this, that the department heads are the determining factor here on what they allow within their budgets, okay? Me being one, the other elected department heads being others. We determine that, and it's within reason, working with employees. It's not punitive, it's what's within reason. And then the other side of it is, if there is something that needs to come before the finance committee for approval and then the full board, that doesn't mean that we can't approve it and pay it ahead of time. There's nothing in this that says we can't do that. And at times checks were being held where that's inappropriate. Our employees were waiting for their money for 2 months while it went through that process, and that's just not fair. So that's another reason that I wanted to clarify that and get it on the record that there is no authority for anybody to change a claim, to cross something out, to highlight it and then pay another amount and say your mileage isn't this. It can just be objected to. And then it comes before the board, but in the meantime, the employee can be reimbursed and we can ask for that money back from the employee if this board decides that that's not appropriate. Where it comes into play is if like in one case, it was submitted on the 3rd or 4th of a month to the appropriate channel, and then by the time it got to finance committee, or by the time it would have went to finance committee, it was after committee. So then they were waiting 2 months to go through the whole process. And some people do live check to check. So intent matters when you're passing these changes. Mr. Searway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Speakman, on the non-exempt employees, in that wording, I think is the Fair Labor Standards Act is quoted, and I don't know if that's the whole paragraph is the Fair Labor Standards Act, but in the middle of the paragraph, I got a problem with the wording that, and this is just my opinion, where it says And let me find it. My eyes are not as good as they used to be. Do not start early, finish late, work during a meal, or perform any extra duties unless authorized by so in advance. I mean, really? Do we gotta say that?
For hourly employees?
Yeah.
Yes. Beforehand, true.
Okay.
Because you don't want.
You're only gonna give them 40. I mean, they're 40-hour a
Or
week.
35.
Or 35.
Or
right.
37 and a half.
Right, 37. But I mean, I just don't like that verbiage in work, man. Don't work.
Yeah.
You know, I just have a problem with.
For hourly employees, what you want is that you don't have someone come back 3 days later and say, I stayed an hour late on Tuesday because I didn't have enough to do, or because I had extra work to do, and there was no management of that process.
Okay.
Another good example is if somebody sat at their desk and ate lunch for 5 years, then they're discharged, and they charge it back for that hour for 5 years, and it happens.
It does happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So you have to have it down that it's not allowed.
All right.
And don't allow it.
And don't allow it.
Mr.
Right.
Byrne?
Call the question.
The question has been called. So at this point, move forward. It seems like we've talked through this. Please spend time with the manual. See if there's other things you want to bring up. Bring it back here to executive. Obviously, talk to the department head and talk to to me also to bring and make sure it's on the agenda, and we'll address that as the case may be. So, I guess we have we had a motion and a second already. All those in favor? I'm sorry. Approve the manual as is, and then we'll bring back any suggested changes for the next go around. On specifics, she'll have more. We'll add some things that you noted going through that. So, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Snipes, do you have anything for Anita?
Not so for Anita, but more of a procedural issue. When we call for the motion, or call for the question, that's actually a motion to end debate, and it requires a second, and then also requires a vote. So I would just that we just go through it or whatever. But anytime we do a motion to, call for the question, it's just not one person. That does require again, a vote, because it's a motion to end debate.
I'll suspend discussion now to go ahead and look up Robert's Rules of Order to make sure that that's accurate. If that's what the committee, would you like to know for the next time?
I would.
Okay, for next time, I'll look that up. It was my impression on Robert's Rules of Order that call to question immediately suspends debate, and then you go to vote. So
It requires a second, and it requires a.
do you have any? We're springing this on you, Mr. GQ in the back, Graham Quinn, Esquire. Any comment?
This is one of those things I was gonna bring up after the meeting today because I have realized you are doing it incorrectly.
It's on.
Calling the question is not supposed to just stop the debate. It's supposed to be like Mr. Snipes says, a motion to end debate. Stops people from getting off topic and all that kind of thing. So he's right that it should be up for a vote.
It should be up for a vote.
It should just be we're done talking about this, let's vote.
So with that, there's a motion and a second, and then discussion on stopping the discussion?
No, there's no discussion about it.
Okay, so
It's
it's conflating the two
It does have to
together.
be voted on,
Okay,
but there's no discussion about it. It's more of a,
Can it just be a roll call?
I don't see why not.
Right.
So that way one individual member doesn't have the power to stop everyone from voicing their thoughts, asking their questions, that kind of thing.
That's right. Suppression.
so, no, I appreciate it, because we were gonna get the answer. Now, do we need to back up? Would you suggest we back up and go through a motion and a second to call a question to tie this up?
I would say you're done. I don't think it was
It
an
waives, we kind of like waived it because we didn't bring it up before. I only just brought it up
That was-
afterwards.
That's kind of my
For
head.
education.
You seem to accept that was kind of your internal rule, is to call the question and all that. I don't think it's appropriate under Robert's rules, but that was the way you've been doing it.
Right.
So
Since I've been here, but again, that doesn't mean you're always
So,
doing
I mean,
things the right way.
I would
So,
echo your thoughts though. If anyone does have any questions or anything, please let's jump back into that. But it did seem like we were dying down anyway.
Okay. So
I'm
in
not
the
telling you what to
future,
do, obviously, that's
motion
your call.
second, no debate.
No
go
debate,
right into
vote,
a
done.
voice vote and
And
to
then you
end
vote on the
debate.
original motion.
Okay, and then vote on the
Independent of
original
that,
motion.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Get that guy a raise.
I call for the questions that's been called.
Thank you, Anita. Moving on, administrative issues. Oh wow, this first one. Appointment of Jim Byrne to the Kankakee County Board of Health. He's the county board member.
I'd like to abstain from that.
Yes, exactly.
John Davis just voted no.
I promise to bring cupcakes the first meeting.
Well played.
I'll buy them though.
Yeah.
I'll buy them.
Reappointment of George Searles to the Kankakee County PBC. Reappointment of Alice Argelin to the Wilcan Regional Development Authority. Reappointment of Daniel Anker to the BM Lewis Drainage District. Reappointment of Larry Hammond to the Canavan Drainage District. Oh, another one. Reappointment of Bill Olthoff to the X-Line Creek Drainage William Olthoff. I apologize. Yeah. Reappointment of Naomi Endress to the Grinnell Special Drainage District. Reappointment of Daryl Ort to the Joe Bennis Drainage District. Reappointment of Larry Dumontel to the Little Beaver Drainage District. Reappointment of Francis J. Smith to the Mantino Drainage District number 3, excuse me. Reappointment of David DeYoung, bless you, to the Snake Creek Drainage District. Reappointment of James Wasser to the Snake Creek Drainage District. Reappointment of Neil Trudeau to the Union number 2 Drainage District. And reappointment of Bruce Mathis to the Yellowhead and Washington Drainage District. Can I get a motion to combine and approve? Mr. Washington, second. Mr. Snipes. Any discussion on any of those? Come on. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, thank you. Openings. Some of these are ongoing, some are new. 2 openings on the Kankakee County Regional Planning Commission. 1 opening on Clawson Drainage District, 1 opening on Gar Creek Drainage District, 2 openings, Mantino number 3 Drainage District. Is that the one that's been perpetual? The Mantino number 3? Okay, that's been ongoing. We're gonna have to look into that because I think that we need to make sure that they have appointments that go until their term ends. Otherwise, could be some issues, so we'll look into that. 1 opening on the Mantino number 9 Drainage District, 1 opening on McGilvery Drainage District, 1 on the Minnie Creek Drainage District, 1 on Momented Yellowhead Drainage District, 1 on the Spring Creek Drainage District, 2 openings on the Essex Township Fire Protection District. That's the one that I was concerned about. It was the Essex Township Fire Protection District. And that's been an ongoing opening, so we're gonna have to look into that. 1 opening on the Ethics Commission. I do have an applicant. 3 openings on the Animal Welfare Advisory Committee. So, yes, they expire on terms. Some people may reapply. If there's other people that want to apply, please do. Let's see here. Just for rolling terms, so everybody doesn't fall off at the same time. Let's see here. Other business. Approval of the Circuit Clerk's monthly report for July 2018. Approval of the Coroner's monthly report for July 2018. Approval of the Coroner's monthly report. Receipts for money for July 2018. Approval of the Public Defender's monthly report for June 2018. Approval of the Assessor's monthly report for July 2018. Is this supposed to be July for the Public Defender? Looks like a Scrivener's error. It says, he sent you June? Okay, it's June. Approval of the County Clerk's monthly report for July 2018. Approval for the Recorder's monthly report for July 2018. Can I get a motion to combine and approve, please? Mr. Olthoff, Mr. Legess. Is there any questions? I believe the only one here is Ms. Gadboy. Mrs. Gadboy, is there anybody has any questions for her? I didn't think so. I thought I'd ask. They have a motion and a second. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. No information right now. Under old new business, the Kankakee County Cupcake Ordinance. So I'll just read the title into the record. An ordinance allowing the establishment of home kitchen operations. Is there a motion to approve on the floor? Mr. Byrne, second. Mr. Olthoff. We've had a robust debate. It's already baked into the conversation. Sorry, it was right there. Come on.
Add some sprinkles.
Yeah, so I guess, is there any other thing that needs to be said? Any other things for the benefit of the group? Mr. Byrne?
One last thing, it's just, my point is it us, the county board, to tell a private citizen what they can and cannot do when the law is already on the state books permitting this? That's my point.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Comment, I'm sorry, Mr. Hess.
Thank you. The question he just mentioned there, the statement he just made, we do the same thing with solar farms. We have people that request to have a solar farm put on their property, and it's up to us to deny it. I won't support this because Mr. Beavis has got concerns.
For somebody else, I'm sorry. Mr. Lejess.
I just feel like Mr. Beavis has brought up valid points, and I appreciate that. I just think that it's kind of an overreach, so I think I can support this.
Thank you. Mr. Seroy?
I think we all know somebody we can call to get our 10-year-old a birthday cake made and lives in the neighborhood. And if this ordinance gonna help that person that might be making $10 a cake or $40 a cake or whatever it is, if this is gonna help that person not feel like they're trying to go behind the law to provide a service for our communities, I know there's many in my community, I can support this as written. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Snipes?
I know the young lady that brought this to us, I was not familiarized with the cupcake law, but I appreciate the fact that instead of just doing what you want to do, you looked at the laws, you came and addressed the political body that governs that, and so therefore, I think it's a step in the right direction when individuals do bring things to us or whatever, that they at least seek the political body or the political governing body versus just doing things on their own. So I find it plausible, and I support it.
Thank you. My position is that it goes to whatever the village or city is that's next, and let them make the decision. We should support that and let their jurisdiction decide if it's right for their community. That's my position. So we have a motion and a second. Did you have anything, Mr. Victory? Sorry.
Yeah, I can't support it. Just,
okay.
We just need to have a roll call. I think.
Roll call vote then.
Mr. Tripp?
No.
Mr. Washington?
Yes.
Mr. Lejess? Mr. Vickery?
No.
Mr. Olthoff?
Yes.
Mr. Hess?
Nay.
Mr. Snipes?
Aye.
Mr. Byrne?
Aye.
Mr. Seroy?
Aye.
Ms. Weber? Mr. Zenz?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
3 pages.
8-4.
Motion carries. Moving on to the courthouse memorial, the Women's Club, Kankakee. There's some members here today to answer questions if anybody on the committee would have any. This is something that I brought to Building and Grounds roughly, I think, 6 months ago to say, as far as I could tell, no other chairman has ever brought that to the county board to say, do we want to put something on the courthouse lawn? I looked, I couldn't find anything throughout all the monuments. Yeah, keep scrolling down, please. So what I was doing is bringing it here to executive committee. Building and Grounds said, yeah, originally we agree that's a good location. Now they want to see the actual material of what the brick is and have our architect kind of sign off that this would be a match, if you will. It wouldn't conflict with the other monuments and things like that. So there is a sample of the brick here for everybody to see. So I'm going to get a letter from the county's architect to kind of give his opinion on this. So what I'm bringing here today, besides a brick to pass around, so if you, I mean, Todd, you could be the Vanna White with the brick and kind of show everybody if you wanted, but no, on the plaques. Yeah, I definitely didn't want that. So what we're doing is at least matching. Go down. Thank you. Is matching. That's what Building and Grounds was concerned with. was the matching of it. The second thing that executive would be, is this a proper use of the courthouse lawn? The women's club had these plaques already done. They're bronze. They're produced. They are paying for it on their dime. At the very, I guess, least we would offer would be a plug-in for some lighting, and maybe there'll be a little bit of mini solar panels out there if that happens. You know, little small ones for the lighting at night. But I thought it was appropriate that executive committee should make that call because it has never been brought, as far as I can tell, to any committee at the county board for any other memorial. So, you know, the language, if you want to, we'll run through it real quick. It's factual. It's just, it's not, I want to say, it's celebratory in the fact that we look around the country, not just in Illinois, but there's communities this size for 3 governors that come from here. It is historical. It is something that is significant. And these were basic facts about these individuals, not necessarily accomplishments in office, just what their election dates were. And we figured that they'll always be Google in some form or another. So, but that's what they look like in general. And those are the facts that are on there, where they were born, first lady, that type of thing. And their political careers, if you will, as far as their election dates. And so those are the 3. So if anybody has any comment or question directed towards the Women's Club, they're here. I'll start with Mr. Legess.
So we haven't actually voted on this as a county board?
Nope, this is it. This
Are
is the
we
one.
voting, are we gonna vote on it?
This is the executive committee to make
The
the decision.
executive committee is gonna make the decision whether it goes or not?
Yes.
It's not going before the full county board?
No, I figured this is it's a decision for the executive committee. There is no precedent as far as this goes. I thought it was appropriate to
Because-
have this committee decide.
Believe it or not, this is one of the issues that I've gotten a lot of calls on, and not one person is for it. So, I mean, it looks like it's a done deal when you look at everything they've done.
Well, they
So-
purchased the plaques. It's a done deal as far as them owning the plaques. It's not necessarily a done deal whether
Well,
we agree to do it.
I'll
Yeah.
voice my opinion. I'm
Yeah.
opposed to, I'm opposed to the.
Yep. Mr. Byrne?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm all for privately funded memorials. I'm a fan of history. And I think history belongs in history museums, not on publicly funded land. That's just my own personal opinion. Perhaps the Kankakee County Museum would be a great location for these, but I don't support putting it on public property. That's all.
Any other thoughts, comments? Mr. Snipes?
I've heard and I've gotten calls both ways. I've even heard where individuals have attacked somewhat the character and stated their particular opinions. I want to say this, and hopefully it's taken in the right context. There is a historical slogan out of a good book that said, "He that's without sin, let him cast the first stone." I think what they're trying to do is plausible. I think what they're doing is historical in that we are unique in having 3 governors from, had 3 governors from from Kankakee. That's unique. It doesn't take away anything, the pluses or minuses, when you're putting up a historical figure saying we've had 3 governors, here they are. They served in public office, so therefore I think a public place is a proper venue as far as that's concerned. I think when I look at it, I don't, some of these was way back before. I do know George Ryan or whatever, and I do know the cloud that people put there, but I also see all the good that George has done. I remember the Illinois First Farm, that jail would not be here. KCC wouldn't have the additions, that ice skating rink, a lot of other things. We can take one bad situation that may have happened and cloud all the good that a man has done. And I'm not a Republican to say that I'm supporting George Ryan, but I'm just looking at his record. I've read 2 books that people had placed out or whatever. But when I looked at, and even in Chicago, they speak well of this man. So I don't want anyone to take a bad cloud to overshadow the good that has happened. That's me. So therefore I support it, and I'm supporting it for that particular reason, because I'm sure that all of us have done something in our lives that we might not be so smiling about. But should that overcloud everything that we did, all the accomplishments that we made? I say not. That's just my point.
Mr. Washington.
I happen to have some connection with Sam Shapiro. The year when I was asked to become a driver's license examiner, I was wondering how I was going to get from here to Springfield to train for that time, because I had no money. I hadn't worked for a while. Sam Shapiro called me, and I didn't even know he recognized who I was. He had me come to his house. He gave me monies to get there and to eat and survive while I was there. And he said, "You can pay me back when you can." I believe that honoring the 3 governors that have existed here in Kankakee County is the most appropriate act that we can do, by putting their notices upon the public properties.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Seroy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I missed the location of the memorial. Where's it gonna be at? Because this is gonna be the only reason I'm talking about this is, if we're gonna put there, it's gonna be there forever. And you wanna make sure that we're not putting it on top of any utilities that might, in our old courthouse, we might have to replace the pipes, the sewer, and all that stuff. I just wanna make sure that it's in the proper location. And Mr. Wheeler, I think we had some discussion years ago about memorials on the courthouse, but I don't remember the context of what it was, because there are a lot of memorials on the courthouse. How many are there?
I could think of, let's see, 1, 2, we got statue, the bench, the flag, the police memorial. There's probably 5 or 6.
I just don't want all those memorials are important, very important for each individual, but when you glump them all together,
right,
they lose their importance. You see what I mean by that?
Yeah, that's you asked about the location. That's why it was at this. It'd be the northwest corner, facing diagonal. That's the bench that is currently there.
Okay.
That's the Ryan Governor bench, if you will. That's the one sitting there, and that space in between are pavers that you just saw with people buying the pavers to pay for it, and it's facing this direction, like Court and Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah, Court, Indiana. There. So that's kind of the direction. And if the back end is sloped, so we'd have to get excavators in there. Building and grounds, actually Brian did this a long time ago when he was here. Julie was out there. We know where everything is at, and that was where he said this is the best place,
spot. Okay.
best spot. So building and grounds, only other question, it was Mr. Kinzinger who asked about it matching with everything else that's going on. So
I just worry about as many memorials as we have. Where do we draw the line, and where do we stop? Or do we run out of lawn? I think it needs to go someplace, but I'm just not sold on the courthouse lawn, that part of it. I love the memorial. I love it. I think these men need to be honored. I just, when you have so many memorials in a certain spot, it makes it's almost like a, lack of a better term, a graveyard. Just.
I got you. Anyone, Mr. Tripp? I'll come back to you.
Support this. I think it's a proper place for it.
Thank you. Second time, Mr. Lejess.
Just a quick comment. I managed the Knights Columbus for 30 years, and we're kitty corner from the courthouse. And I never even thought about the courthouse most of the time I was there. But when we started losing trees on the courthouse lawn and we had to cut them down, One day I walked out and I had a clear view with the trees gone of how beautiful that courthouse is. And I think, I agree with Mr. Serois. We just keep putting stuff out there and clogging up the lawn and you never even appreciate the courthouse. I just think maybe put it somewhere else, but I don't think it needs to be there.
The only other comment that I had would be is when it was, Mr. Byrne brought it up, and it's not to negate his comment, but you'll still see in the Governor State University in the Hall of Governors, you'll still see Mr. Ryan up there. So I think that's appropriate that they haven't turned their back on history. His issues came after he left office, and it may have been some things that occurred during, but you know, it's the day of the impeachment of Mr. Blagojevich, he was down, he was gone, and he's not back. I think we need to draw a line somewhere along that line. That's my opinion. Again, not telling everybody else how to vote. So, Mr. Olthoff.
Kankakee County Courthouse is the place of history in Kankakee, and I think that's the place for it.
Thank you. All right, we end the debate. Mr. Siri.
I will not clog this memorial up if the committee feels like that's the place it needs to go. I've just stated my opinion.
Sure, sure, I got you. Mr. Vickery?
Yeah, I support it.
Thank you. Alrighty, moving around, can we do a voice vote? Do we have a motion first? I need a motion to approve. Mr. Olthoff, Mr. Tripp, a second. All those in favor?
Roll call.
Oh, roll call. Mr. Tripp was a second. Roll call. It is.
Mr. Tripp?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Lejes? Mr. Vickery?
Aye.
Mr. Olthoff?
Aye.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Mr. Snipes?
Aye.
Mr. Byrne?
Nay.
Mr. Seroy?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Zenz?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
10-2, motion carried.
Motion carries. So again, you'll just go back to building and grounds to reaffirm that location and the style of the brick. That's the only hitch in the get along, I guess, right now with that is to make sure it's sufficient on their questions. Alrighty, last thing.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I was going over this and some of us have signed this wrong.
Which one?
Everybody double check. I've been waiting for the one. I signed,
I did too, and I want to change it.
You all said aye. Can we straighten that out after the next item on the agenda? Yeah, we'll.
I made it a point.
Oh, no, we'll get it. We'll catch it. I just want to make sure we move it along. We'll go through the next item. All right, the next item, ordinance amending the definition of a hotel. I believe that is the language. First, I'll go with a motion to approve. Need a motion on the floor? Mr. Zen, second. Mr. Washington. What this is doing here, I'm our representative on the CVB's board, with Airbnb and VRBO and all these different other, rent your house out yourself type companies. They should be paying hotel motel tax. Yes, they should. I know when you go to Florida, you rent out the farm, don't you? No, I'm just kidding. But no, it's a legitimate thing. So it's going on across the state. We need to amend what that definition is in order to be able to then take the next step on alerting the people who rent those out that they have to be sending the hotel motel tax down to Springfield so we can have it go to the treasurer can remit it to the CVB. So as you're seeing more and more of that, believe it or not, there's a lot of that going on in the county. There's a lot of people renting out cottages and rooms and things like that. So any questions about that? It's more just a definition so we can go to the next step. And Graham is here. He wrote this elegant document. Yes, they can bake cupcakes, I think.
Does that mean if you rent farmland?
Farmland? What if you're camping on it? Maybe I don't know.
You got it.
Yeah, and it's subsidized also. Yeah. So, no questions? Motion to approve. Oh, we already have that, I'm sorry. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Alrighty, do we have any other motions today?
Right here.
Put your hand down, I'll talk.
Mr. Legess, would you have something for the group?
Motion we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn? Do I have a second? He's protesting. Mr. Washington, all those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you. And please, stick around, sign everything. We got a couple of them to fix.